What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy here on a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. We're going to talk about Rise of the Planet of the Apes today, guys. The beautiful reboot, 2011's masterpiece ape film. We can't wait to talk about it with you guys. We'll see you in just 1 second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! I don't care how many times I hear this song, it never gets old.
No. Every time it comes on in the car, I'm just like, yes!
Yes!
Here we go. I am Optimus Prime. Oh, wait, no, that was last week.
That was last week's episode.
Ah, shit.
Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy. Welcome to Apesian. Nope. That didn't work.
I like that you called it an ape show in the intro.
An ape movie?
Ape movie.
It's a favorite genre of mine.
We are
movies.
professionals at what we do.
It's a sign of when you're trying to come up with what you're going to say on the spot and you lose your train of thought. So you say something like an ape movie.
Ape movie.
Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy. It's Wednesday. We're talking Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Rupert Wyatt's 2011 reboot of the franchise. A very underrated film. A film I'm very excited to talk about today.
Yeah, incredibly underrated and overlooked and forgotten about. I feel like this whole franchise has kind of gotten that effect. It's interesting, though, because everyone's referring to the third movie as a masterpiece, and it's like, do you even remember the first two, person?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think it makes it exciting. I love when things like this happen with movies like this, because it means that people's willingness to treat this trilogy seriously. It's like Edge of Tomorrow. It's like the same sort of thing. People missed it. So now it's like when you talk about that movie, it's a modern classic. Whereas like when people see something in the beginning and it's like a hugely hyped movie, people have a much larger unwillingness to give it the credit it's due.
For sure, and this was a massively hyped film. I mean, this is one of the most. I mean, the original Planet of the Apes is one of the most cult classic films ever.
Yeah. So,
but we are pre-taping today.
Yes,
wanted to get
guys,
that out there.
We're coming to you not actually from a Wednesday afternoon. We're coming to you from a Thursday afternoon, 6 days earlier, which is why, because now we have a special Genesis lab tech on the couch.
We
Say
do.
hello to Marina.
Hello.
back.
She's back.
I survived in Genesis, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, but she's not in the live chat, guys, because well, there is no live chat.
There is no live chat. She survived the simian flu, but we will try to be in the live chat when this video goes up.
Yes, I promise I will be there next Wednesday.
So if
to
you
talk
guys
to y'all.
want to work on like some time travel stuff, she'll be like sitting there pretending she's in the live chat, but then being on the live chat somewhere else.
To blow your mind.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So guys, we're on the Popcorn Talk Network, coming to you live, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies, pop culture, and bucketfuls of pop culture. If you want to follow along with the conversation, you can find either one of us. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram. You can find our podcast at AMA Podcast, and you can find our Facebook group.
Yeah.
There's a Facebook fan page, the AMA Podcast fan page.
There's like 10 people joining that a day almost. It
Very
feels
cool.
like. Yeah. It's awesome. A lot of interaction. You guys can find me at Andrew Ghai on Instagram and Twitter, and you will see me interacting on that fan page a lot.
And if you want to follow along with the exploits of our official Genesis Lab Tech, Marina Verano, where can they find you?
Instagram and Twitter at Marina_Verano.
Excellent.
I think she got more followers yesterday than I've gotten in 2 years.
Yeah. Solid.
Seems about right.
Optimus Prime hooked it up.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Did a good job. So yeah, guys, let's talk about this movie. We talk about action movies here, and this is definitely an action movie.
Yep.
They have 4 basic rules they adhere to, aside from being made after 1981. Rule number 1: the hero always plays by their own rules. Now, what's interesting about this is it doesn't seem at the beginning like the hero is the hero.
Yeah.
He seems like a support character, but in the end, the kind of generic straight white male character ends up as just exactly that. And
Yeah,
the
totally.
monkey, the ape, is 100% the hero.
Yeah, and so does that make the villain the Brian Cox's son?
I think like the villain in this movie is
Is
mankind.
humanity. Yeah, mankind,
Because in
yeah.
a lot of ways, like James Franco is a hero, but he just is a villain by default.
Totally, and
Yeah.
like they're the ones that created the simian flu, and they talk about that extensively in the second movie. That it wasn't apes.
Right.
It's not fair to call it the simian flu. You should call it the human flu.
I mean, in
You
the
know?
end, if you like the one part of this movie that when you're watching, I think people skip over is that 3/4 of the way into the movie, this character that you're supposed to feel sympathetic towards, James Franco, goes back to experimenting on apes again. So he goes and does this like evil thing, even though it's for the purpose of saving humans. Like,
But it's not. It's really just a selfish conquest. It's not even to save humans. It's just to save his dad. That's
Yeah.
why he's so actively doing it in the moment.
which makes this movie very interesting. And,
Yeah.
if you get caught up in the black and white of it, you miss the fact that like he really isn't the hero.
He's almost kind of the villain. He's the one that started everything.
He's part of humanity. So rule number 2: the hero and the villain are always the smartest people, beings, things, apes, dinosaurs, robots, what have you in the room. Okay, well, Caesar's definitely the smartest in the room, 100%.
Oh, 100%.
But who's the villain who is equally smart? Nobody.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. Is there isn't really a true villain other than mankind.
Yeah, Brian Cox doesn't know what's going on enough to be the villain.
But I think you can't
He
say
just
that
eats a
mankind
sandwich
is the
instead.
villain and say and say that it is the smartest person in the room because, or it tries to be.
Right.
It tries to contain him. It's trying to evolve past him. It's trying to, like, we are the villain.
Yeah, right.
100%.
Rule number 3, the movie is driven by a police, military, political, or mercenary figure. Yeah, in no way, shape, or form does that apply to this one.
No, it does not.
Yeah, there's nobody. We can't even.
I mean, they work for the government.
They're an ape militia.
But he's an ape.
Yeah.
If he's the hero, so no.
Yeah.
It don't work.
Ape militia? Okay. Band name? Ape militia? Rule number 4, the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion.
I feel like something explodes.
On the
Does
bridge?
helicopter
Oh, the
explode?
helicopter
Yeah,
explodes.
helicopter.
definitely.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a helicopter explosion.
We watched it, I promise.
Yeah. So that's the rules, guys. As you know, we have been a little more loose with the rules, and in these recent months, we've decided to kind of expand a little bit outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's actually improved the show.
Yeah, so coming up on the show today, guys, we are going to be talking about everything to do with this film, as well as a couple different segments. One, sequels that surpass the original, or at least that the common opinion is that those sequels did surpass. Stay tuned for that. Zeros to heroes, some of our favorite characters who start in the gutter or start as sissies and become awesome, commanding, leading, just like yes characters. And then finally, we're going to be talking a little bit about the AMA question later, submitted this week by Jacob Leif. Life. It's Lief, Jacob. I love you. Thank you. I just don't know how to say it. And you asked us a great question, which inspired another conversation we're going to get to later. But right now, we are going to watch the trailer for the film and get into our thesis statements.
Cool. That was good. That was pretty good. I'd watch this show.
Would you?
If I was listening to you right now.
Are you just saying that to be nice?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay.
No, that was really good. I liked it. Steven, you got the trailer going, brother? Nope.
Steve
left. He left.
We're
actually just here on our own.
Yeah, Steve.
We don't have an engineer.
He was exposed to the ALZ 112 and
gone. The simian flu has.
Excuse me for a second. Steve, there he is.
Yeah, that's
all
all right,
good.
man.
We're gonna show this trailer. Boom.
I don't remember this trailer. I think it was sweet though.
We're talking about huge potential for millions of people.
James Franco
Our
has such a
therapy
bitchy voice
enables the brain
sometimes, but I
to
love
repair
him.
itself. We call it a cure.
I want you to start testing on chimps ASAP.
We test one subject. I want to make sure it's stable.
I designed the 112 for repair, but Caesar's gone way beyond that.
You mean increased intelligence?
Skills that far exceed that of a human
When
counterpart.
when he draws the outline of the window on his cell.
Sweet.
That's it. Yeah. Sad moment.
Yeah. In the second movie, it kind of becomes like his calling sign.
Oh, the symbol.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Sweet. Maybe I know that I've seen that movie.
Yeah. I've only seen it
I
the
need to
once
watch
too.
it.
Yeah. I just don't remember it.
You're trying to control things that are not meant to be controlled.
Brian Cox.
There's Mila Kunis that you
Mila Kunis' accent is weird.
Yeah. She did some great makeup in this film.
Nope.
Not Mila Kunis. I still think it's Mila Kunis.
They are contaminated. Put those apes down.
That moment of all the apes
You have no
waking up
idea
is
just
really cool because they kind of look around and they see the world for the first time
With the green flex.
with the green eye. Yeah, it's just really
Yeah.
cool. They don't like do animalistic stuff. They wake up like humans do.
Totally.
Yeah, this movie's sweet. It's so good. I mean, I guess Oyelowo is the bad guy.
Yeah, he's the villain, but yeah, when they're running around the streets
So
and they throw the
sweet.
manhole cover and
Yeah,
the spears.
and the parking meter.
Yeah.
Just like sheer power over everything. Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
It's a great trailer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's what you expect out of these now.
Yes. All right. Well, we are going to get into the next section of the show, guys. This is a section called Thesis Statement. It's your bold thought, your big, great thought about the film. Should be almost rooted in hyperbole, something strong. The greatest this, the best this, the first this, the only this. Should never be this is my favorite something or other. It should be much more definitive than that. This is what you want to talk about at a party when the movie comes up.
Yep.
So we're going to get straight into it. Drew, would you like to start with your thesis statement?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time because I have a couple that I really like, and then the one that I think I'm sticking with, I'm kind of having a hard time verbalizing it. So the first one I want to talk about is that, like, this franchise has subtly used its casting almost more effectively than any other franchise or series has.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, if you look at when these movies are made and who's in them, they capitalize on people that are on top of the world at the time. So you look at when this movie came out, 127 Hours just happened, Slumdog just happened, and Lithgow was just the Trinity Killer on Dexter. They're
Right.
literally three of the biggest actors in the world. You just don't really know it.
Yeah, right.
But they are.
Yeah, they're all like buzz actors.
Totally.
Big
It's
buzz
the same with the
actors.
second movie. Who do you get in there? You get Gary Oldman, who's been playing the Commissioner Gordon
Yeah,
in the
right.
biggest franchise of all time. You've got Jason Clarke, who has just saturated himself in the Terminator franchise, and this franchise, and in
Zero Dark 30.
and Zero Dark 30. And then and the female in there is different because she's always around. I can't remember her name. She's
I
in The
can't remember.
Waitress.
Carrie Russell?
Carrie Russell. Yeah,
Okay.
Carrie Russell always pops in and out. She never like disappears or like totally. But and then now in the third movie,
Yeah.
they've got Woody.
Yeah.
And Woody's on top of the world
Woody's
again.
in everything.
Yeah.
He's in every franchise.
So one of the things I want to say is because one of our questions was that, like, was James Franco, he almost felt out of place from Eddie Green. And I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but not at all. They needed other reasons for people to come watch this movie other than just Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
So that's one of my thesis statements. The other one is that this is the first time in the whole franchise series, reboots, remakes, that you're rooting for the apes 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And the more we talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I think that that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, I don't remember the first one very, very well, but I definitely remember the Mark Wahlberg one.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're totally rooting for the apes
Yeah.
in this movie, 100%.
Right, yeah. You totally root for the humans in the other ones. They're much simpler movies, I think, in that sense.
Yeah.
Marina, did you find yourself rooting for the apes?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. In the beginning, I love Caesar and I love the relationship that he had with Will, so I wanted him to kind of stay put.
Right.
And I was like shocked when it kind of switched roles, and I'm like, you know what? No, he needs to break free. They're not supposed to be there. But that was actually my thesis statement. I was just going to say, through the dramatic strides, Will goes to, save his father.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize how selfish it is. And you kind of find yourself in between that battle, like, this guy's not living his life because he's not himself anymore, the father.
Yeah.
But then again, Caesar's not living his either. But I found myself, like, totally torn throughout the whole movie, like, till the end. But then, obviously, the last scene, which was crazy on the San Francisco Bridge, I was like, yes, Caesar.
Yeah.
That's super interesting because when you were talking earlier, when you were introducing teasing our segments, you were talking about, like, the cure and the disease and trying to cure Alzheimer's. They create the simian flu. It's so interesting because in these movies, there's all these sociological struggles that go on. In the second movie, the only reason that they become enemies again is because the humans need power, so they need the dam to create electricity, whereas
Right.
the apes can live in darkness.
Right.
So it's this thing of this. The humans are always the villains because they're the ones that need, and so they destroy, whereas the apes can just be left alone and they can
Right.
exist. So I thought that was really interesting when you were talking about that, and with your thesis, to where it's just like, yeah, it's just cause and effect.
Right.
We're the problem.
Right.
I think I'm going to go much simpler. And thinking about this, I've been sitting here for the whole intro of the show, just trying to make sure that I'm not missing something. But I think it's pretty clear that this film starts the most underrated reboot trilogy ever made.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's another one that is on the same level, because even if you go back and you look at the budget for this
Funny
film,
that you drew that logo and I drew the logo too. We
Yeah.
both drew the window on our
drew
paper.
the window logo. I mean, this movie was made for $93 million. This was made in 2011, and that's nothing. Transformers cost $150 or $125 million.
$150 million.
Yeah.
4 years prior.
Yeah, 4 years prior, and like this is a movie about like a giant war of CGI apes
with a massive, massive cult following behind it.
Yeah, and so they really skimped on the budget, which is what this movie really was when it came out. I definitely recall knowing that there was a new Planet of the Apes movie coming out, and just sort of being like, okay, like this wasn't really in my generation. I remember the Mark Wahlberg one sucked, and like these classic movies are just sort of like, they're from like 45 years ago. So like my dad watched them. I've seen the 1967 one. I don't think I've seen any of the sequels. they're spoofed a lot, but like it wasn't relevant. It was not current.
Yeah, that Mark Wahlberg one was tough because it wasn't actually like him and Bonham Carter and Clark Duncan and Tim Roth didn't really do a bad job. It was just the story was so discombobulated, and it was so Tim Burton just trying to be Tim Burton. It was just a nightmare.
I guess the more appropriate thing to say is that the Tim Burton one sucked.
Yeah, it would just say Mark Wahlberg because he's the star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also, but that's also the part of Wahlberg's career when he was like, the world was trying to figure out if they were going to take him seriously and what he was doing.
He almost got caught in the Icarus effect.
Yeah, it was right before he like dipped down and then swung back. And of course now, if I was going to make the list of probably the 5 biggest male stars in the world, I think Wahlberg's
definitely
clearly one of the 5 biggest stars in the world.
Absolutely.
Like his last few years have been insane. Insane.
And he makes good movies too. They're not just, like... He's not just there a lot. He's
well,
making good films.
You guys know how we feel about Lone Survivor and Deepwater Horizon and Patriots. All those movies. We're big fans of those. So, yeah, big fan of Marky Mark, or the man formerly known as Marky Mark. So moving on to our next piece of the show, we're going to get into a conversation about sequels that surpass the original.
Yeah, and can I intro this because
go ahead.
I want to talk about it because our fans. When you and I decided what we were going to do for the next month and a half of shows, our fans were immediately up in arms about how they think we should do Dawn instead of Rise. And they think that Dawn is more appropriate for our show. You guys were right. You were 100% right. The thing is that we believe that it's more important to tell the origin story of such a great character. If the third movie is as fantastic as it is, which I really hope it is, we need to know where Caesar came from. We need to know about Lithgow. We need to know about Franco. Like, Marina, you've never seen any of them, right? Until last night.
In order to appreciate it, I don't think I would have been able to just jump into a segment that was on Dawn or the one that's going to come out. You need to know where it starts, because then you grow attached to it and you're just more invested.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things about Dawn and why you love it so much is because you are on Caesar's side.
Right.
So, I agree. I think that Dawn's a better movie. I think it's a little more entertaining. I think it fits our show more appropriately. But just like I say about Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and I'm going to use that as a segue into this, I think that, however, The Dark Knight is a better film. I think that Batman Begins is more important. And I'd say the exact same thing about Dawn and Rise. I think Dawn is better and more entertaining. I think Rise is much more important.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if we were going to cover the film on here that felt like it was just the action-packed best film... I think we would have covered Dawn just straight up.
Absolutely.
But I think the difference is that we talk about so frequently on this show, it's the scenes between the action that's what the movies are about for us.
Yeah.
And it's really those just like, that's where I mean, you guys know, you've watched, you've listened. The fist pump moment is about that connection to the movie. Yeah. A fist pump moment is supposed to make you feel just like, yes, I love this. It's hard to have as satisfying a fist pump moment for Dawn if you're not talking Rise first. In the same way, like... and I think the big difference is that while Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is considered to be a very good movie, the reason we were able to do The Dark Knight on the show and not Batman Begins is because Dark Knight is considered to be one of the like 20 or 30 greatest films made in the history of mankind.
Ever, yeah.
So it's like we can do that. We can skip a movie, and because Dark Knight is so much more important of a movie in the context of the world, but in the context of that franchise.
And we also all know who Bruce Wayne is.
That story's been told so many times. We all know
how his parents died and the pearl necklace and all that stuff. So it's different.
Because this is not a remake. It's a reboot.
It's a reboot.
Officially a reboot. This is not the story that we know from back in the day.
Yeah, and now it sounds like this might end up being a prequel, trilogy prequel. If we don't know, it's not a spoiler because we just heard that maybe in War. Yeah, because I haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
So other sequels that we had on this list, I think there's some good ones on here. So another one I came up with was T1 and T2.
Yeah, I think it's, you go back and you look and it's like, Terminator 1 changed the game. It was very important. But Terminator 2 became this touchstone film for movie fans.
Absolutely.
We believe it's the greatest action film of all time on this show.
But if you hadn't seen T1, you wouldn't understand why in T2 Linda Hamilton freaks out the way she does.
Right.
You need those things to make it important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a huge one. I think going... Again, with Cameron, I mean, Aliens and Alien.
Oh, absolutely.
Same deal, same kind of thing. I think you can do the same thing with the early comic book movies. So both Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 1 and X-Men 2.
Yeah.
I think everybody agrees Spider-Man 2 is a better movie. And X2 is considered to be the crown jewel of the Marvel Universe for a while there before they started making really good movies.
They started making real movies. Like Captain America and Winter Soldier is really interesting because everyone, I'd say like 100% of people I've talked to think Winter Soldier's
a better movie.
Yeah. And then a couple more I wanted to throw in there just because I like to stir the pot. Empire over New Hope.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone thinks that. No, I am your father. And then, of course, Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. I just like that because you know, I know you love those films. They're the number 2 and 3 ranked movies of all time on IMDb.
Behind the Shawshank Redemption.
Behind the Shawshank. You can't argue. What's that?
I love that movie.
Oh, it's incredible. You can't really argue either one or the other. It just becomes preference. But I did love that Scorsese was like, well, Godfather 2 because I had more money.
You mean Coppola?
No, Scorsese said that.
Oh.
He didn't make it. I'm just saying Scorsese says he likes Godfather 2 more because he had more money. That's the actual quote. I don't know why that's the quote.
Oh, he may be referring to Coppola because he had more money to make it? Got it.
Yeah, sorry. I understand how that's very confusing because Coppola had more money. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone on the record for a long time saying that I think I like Godfather 2 more, though honestly, recently when I've gone back to watch them, I actually changed my opinion.
Yeah.
Godfather 1 is like, I was talking to Drew McQueenie, who writes for... He does the 80s All Over podcast, and I can't think of who he writes for, but he's on Schmoes, and we were talking about just because he's a bit older and how the older generation of films, each decade it moves a little bit, and these movies that are considered to be the cornerstone of American film, the further you get from those movies, no matter how important they seem, they just start to fade. When we were growing up, when we were in our teens, movies from the 60s and 70s were like the fringes for us. They were like 60s and 70s movies. We were aware of all the classics. We knew of all of them. But if you got back to the 40s and 50s, there was like maybe 10 movies we had heard of.
Yeah, Dumbo.
Yeah. Now we're almost 30, and movies from the 60s and 70s, if you talk to somebody who is 15, 16 years old.
20 even?
Yeah. The movies from the 60s and 70s, they're not the like pillars anymore. You start to get into the movies from the 80s and 90s are the pillars.
Exactly.
They're the ones that everybody knows about because you start to talk about The Graduate or Midnight Cowboy or
Risky Business even. Like, I love that movie growing up.
Yeah, and the further away you get. So what he was saying was that he was really hoping that the Godfather films will stand the test of time and really stay where they are. And I hope they will. But Godfather 1 is truly a perfect movie.
Yeah.
It's actually immaculate. You watch it still today, and it's like everything about it, the relationships between the family, it's the development of Michael as a character, all of it is so perfect.
And you know, another one that I want to throw in there too is Lord of the Rings and Fellowship and Two Towers, because not because I think Two Towers is better. I did for a really long time.
Me too, yeah.
Like Two Towers more. But it's the same thing. As time goes on and in decades pass, you go back and you watch, it's perfect. Fellowship is actually perfect, whereas Two Towers isn't.
Yeah.
Fellowship tells this perfect narrative. The exposition is great. They all come together. So I understand what you're saying. As time changes, there's things that you really go back and appreciate more about the original.
Like we should do this because I think this makes sense. Marina, you're like a few years younger than we are, so like movies that growing up were like considered really classics, like essential viewing. Just like rattle off a few that like in your household were like the movies that you had to watch.
Well, I used to watch Godfather and those growing up.
Yeah.
Being Italian, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
But a few that I had to watch. One of the biggest franchises I remember, do you remember Cheaper by the Dozen?
Yeah.
That was huge. I don't know if it was just my community. Every single one of them we watched, and it was like the biggest thing.
Right.
That's so funny. My nieces and nephews are around her age.
Yeah.
And they love those movies.
Cheaper by the
Yeah,
Dozen.
it was huge. I think it's because it had Hilary Duff, Taylor Lautner before
Right.
he blew up on
Topper,
Twilight.
yep.
You were in love, like you had a crush. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Allison Stoner. They all ended up, doing very well, dance careers, whatever they had to do.
Yeah, I'm already disconnected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Completely.
Yeah.
What about stuff not necessarily that you had to watch, but that like when you would hear people talk about it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a classic movie. Maybe I'll see it someday, kind of a thing.
Like, would people reference The Matrix, or would they reference like Terminator? You know what I mean?
Terminator. Or like The Incredibles.
Yeah, right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
so that's the thing is that the true classics are still standing the test of time, but you see that she misses everything else that isn't in between.
I
in
feel
the
like
80s
there's
and
a
90s.
huge gap. Yeah, no, for sure.
Like she's
Massive.
saying like, oh yeah, Terminator and Godfather.
Yeah.
It's like those are some of the greatest of all time. But what about like The Graduate? What about about Risky Business? What about
Risky Business? Okay,
Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles,
Breakfast Club.
That's
all 80s though.
Yeah, right.
So that's literally the equivalent of the 60s and 70s
like
for us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
so crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Anchorman, maybe.
Yeah.
See, so then I was in high school, I think.
Right, Anchorman.
Or middle school.
Yeah, was it 2004? I think. So I think that
so
sounds
sophomore.
right.
Yeah. Such a trip.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, guys, that's gonna cover sequels that surpass for us. We're gonna get into the next part of our show, which is a sweet one for this movie because this is fist pump moment. It's that moment you're watching the movie, something happens, you kind of look around, you're like, are you seeing this right now? Are you seeing what's happening? I'm so excited to get to watch the rest of this movie.
Yes, there's 2 hours left. Oh my god, I can't wait.
Can be anything. Can be an explosion, a look from one character to another, the music, the title sequence, whatever you want it to be.
A phone call between an MTA officer and his wife.
Yeah, milk. I can get a half gallon.
Get a half gallon. I can't get a whole gallon.
I can't get a whole gallon.
You tell yourself when you get home.
So, guys, this is fist pump moment, and there's a lot in this movie.
There are so many.
I would say my fist pump moment in this movie, though, pretty clearly, because I love Caesar's rise to prominence, and I love how smart he is. So I love when he's struggling in the prison, and he's like drawing the picture on the wall, and he's so sad, and he has the moment of realization that like, no, I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do what I have to because fuck humanity. Yeah. Because fuck these people. I'm gonna get out of this place.
I'm the smartest thing in this whole building.
Yeah, exactly.
I will outsmart each and every one.
Yes.
Yeah, he gets like his face becomes angry, and
that's the thing is you see it is after the first time he gets his ass kicked in there and he goes back to his cell and he realizes it, his face changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And he becomes so rugged, the hair patches, and you like your heart breaks, but you know he's like growing as I would say an individual. As
no,
an
it's
ape.
true. It's
but
absolutely.
You know, yeah.
So my fist pump moment is when he sneaks out and he goes and he
and he grabs what's his name, Rocket?
Well, he lets the gigantic dude out of the cage who never gets out, and then he lures out the bully and he whacks him with the gas can or like the metal can or whatever, and the guy like gets up like he's gonna fight him and he looks
like,
over.
What are you doing?
And then he sees the big guy and Caesar just stares at him and he's like, I got muscle now, son.
Yeah.
It's like, you get off. He's like, yeah, and he just like, and he doesn't even think about it. And I love that because the way Caesar stands over him and just looks at him.
So stoic.
It's fucking prison is what this movie
is. It is exactly prison.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
You know, and it's like he
got the biggest badass dude on his side.
Right. Exactly. He went in there and he just punched some dude straight in the face.
Genius.
Yeah, but he got, he had to become someone's bitch first.
He did. He got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Did you have a fist pump moment?
Okay, I had a few.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them was my fist pump. So this one was more of like, it's like in the middle of my emotional explosion.
Oh, there it is.
So when
emotional explosion.
They first find baby Caesar, and Franklin's like, take it. Well, like I can't right now. Like I can't. I'm not in a place to take it. And he's like, what do you want me to do? I can't take care of a monkey. And he's like, you know what? Jacob's made me put down the other 12. Be my guest. Like you've put all this work in, to try and find this. You do it. And then it just goes immediately to him walking through the door with a monkey. And without any words, he didn't answer. It just was an automatic flash to the house. And I was just like, see, you did the right thing. Right. Let's see where this unfolds, And then another one.
That is a half awe moment.
Right? Yeah. Like, because I was like, no, don't leave him. And then I'm like, hell yeah, you did the right thing.
For those of you curious what we're talking about, last week on the show, we introduced Marina's explosion of emotion, the ah moment. They're like, it's so sweet.
Yeah, because every great action film should have that moment that brings you back to reality.
They got to push the button. They got to tug at the heartstrings.
They got to make you feel. They do. Yeah.
So my other one was when Will says, I can't lose them both. I won't lose them both. And then it just cuts to another scene. Can't lose his father, and he can't lose Caesar. And he's like, I'm not gonna stop until I have both of them.
Yeah, I definitely connect to the father-son stuff in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Definitely gets me. And especially when Lithgow looks at him and he's just like, don't do it to me again.
When
he's gonna inject him the second time with the stronger ALZ 112
after Caesar's already been in prison.
Yeah, and he looks at him and he's just like, just let me go.
Right.
Yeah, so sad. Yeah, that is so sad.
Pulling at my heartstrings.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it's because he sees what
it's a selfish. He's doing it for himself. He's not doing it for the life of his father.
He's doing it to
anymore.
keep his dad around. Yeah, it's not for his dad. That is very true. My fist pump moment is actually with Lithgow. I think Lithgow is the best part of this movie.
Really?
I really do. I mean, actually, that's not true. I think Caesar's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think that goes without saying. I think Lithgow's the next best part of the film because he brings such a level of empathy and humanity to the film. Like you said, it gets you. She's getting choked up right now talking about the movie. It's like it's because Lithgow is so great at playing a weak old man that you love, you want to take care of, and he's so full of life when he comes back. You know. So my fist pump is when Lithgow gets out of the house finally, and it's after the ALZ started to wear off, and his Alzheimer's back, and all he's talked about is wanting to drive.
Yeah.
And he gets in a black Mustang.
I know where you're going with this.
And he crashes in the car in front of him, crashes in the car behind him, and he's got the asshole neighbor who comes out. And by the way, the neighbor's not even an asshole. The neighbor's just a guy that's trying to exist with, with a crazy-ass neighbor that has a monkey that runs around and, like, could kill his kids. Like, the neighbor's made to be a bad guy when it's really not his fault. So he comes out, and he's like, get out of my car. What are you doing? Get out. You know, I'm calling the cops. Don't go anywhere. I'm calling the cops. And Lithgow's, you know, and Caesar's seeing it from the window and pointing at him. And you're like, oh, shit. What's going to happen?
Something's about to go down.
Yeah. And see, all of a sudden, Caesar's there. He throws him on the ground. He starts beating on his chest. And the guy gets up and runs.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you don't even know where Caesar went. Yeah. And the guy runs to his front door. And it's shot from behind. Like, you're still on the street. And the camera's on the street. And you see him just get kicked in the chest, and he flies over his porch. Yeah. You're just like, oh, shit. Yeah. You're like, you don't want to get in a fight with an ape. But then he runs again, and then he jumps on him and bites off his finger.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there are some great action fist pumps. Another huge one for me is when Caesar's on the horse for the first time. Yeah. And you see him pop up. That's that's pretty sick.
There's something super epic about monkeys riding horses holding guns.
Yeah, really.
It looks awesome.
It's definitely not a common occasion.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you don't see it that often.
Yeah, they've done a great job. I mean, I honestly think that the action sequence in the last 40 minutes, where very often action sequences in movies lose me. The action is the part of the movie that loses me. Did not lose me at all.
No, it's epic.
It was a really, really sweet action sequence.
You know what another one is? When the music that plays, I thought was a really smart choice when he rolls the cans and it's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
You know, like all of a sudden you just see the fumes go up and the monkeys are like sleeping and.
Right.
I thought that was just music.
Was a really
so
cool
it was,
moment.
but it was still like just music alone, no words. I was like. Finding myself like amped for
so
what's
you're getting it.
come.
You get fist pump. Yeah. You understand.
It's my thing.
We did have a secondary fist pump, you and I. And it's when Brian Cox walks on screen for the first time because I totally forgot he was in the movie.
Yeah.
I legitimately almost called you.
Yeah.
I almost called you like, dude, I forgot Cox was in this. He's amazing.
I was sitting there.
Never heard of him.
I was sitting there with Rox, and we were watching it, and she was like, Cox came on. I was like, oh, Cox. She was like, what?
She's like, why do you care?
I was like, yes, Cox.
It's good. You should scream that when you hang out with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to star profiles. This is what I'm talking about. This is super interesting. So you got James Franco, who did 127 Hours in 2010. He was nominated for Best Actor. That also was nominated for Director and Picture. Is that right?
27 hours? It's 127 hours. This is the end.
It's 100. It's 127. It's so good. And then he's uncredited in The Green Hornet.
Yeah, must have a small role.
I don't remember him in there.
Because Rogan, yeah.
Yeah, and then Your Highness, which was that god-awful stoner comedy set back in time.
I didn't see it, but it's definitely one of the movies from like that whole run, that group, that is like, I just never hear a word about it.
It's supposed to be atrocious.
Yeah, with Natalie Portman.
Yeah, which is a crazy game. Isn't it him, McBride, and Portman?
Yeah.
And you're just like, this seems perfect. And then The Broken Tower, which I don't really know what that is. And then he went on to, I mean, you know what he's doing now.
Was Pineapple Express before this? It must have been. It must have been 2009. I was
just about to say
that. Yeah, it was 09.
Which is like one of my favorite comedies ever made.
So good.
It's another movie we could do on here, actually. That's
true. Those are the three.
There's like 4 or 5 now, I think, right?
Anytime people are talking about funny movies, that comes up.
Yeah.
Pineapple Express is
without a doubt
brilliantly funny.
Yeah, this is great. It's super good too. And then on the other side, I wanted to use Lithgow, I wanted to use Freida Pinto, but it's not fair because Andy Serkis needs to be talked about. We haven't talked about him yet, and he is the best part of this movie. He is what
makes
the guy and his motion capture, the way that he moves his body is just phenomenal. I mean, you've seen him in Gollum, or as Gollum in Lord of the Rings. You saw him as King Kong in the old King Kong, and then him as Caesar in this is just perfection.
Well, yeah, and just so people understand, because you can see the picture up here that we posted on the screen, it's not just a guy running around with sensors on his body and they animate the face. He's doing the face. They're taking his expression and they're animating over his expression. That's Andy Serkis. He is doing, like, they're doing their best to take his physical mannerisms, the movement, the shape of his face, and they're turning him into a character. It's acting. It's brilliant acting.
It is brilliant acting. Yes, that's such a good point because, you know, Tom Hardy talks a lot about when he played Bane, he only got to act with his eyes.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where when you watch this movie, the reason it's so good, the reason you empathize with the apes, and the reason you want them to win is because their expressions are so human
that
we empathize 100%. and that could not be captured unless Andy Serkis did what he did. And this was the first time ever in a movie where they took these motion capture graphics and animations and CGI, and they took them outside of a specific sound studio.
Right.
It was on set, on location. So even though the movies that he was in aren't really, I don't really know anything about any of them. There was Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll in 2010.
Rock and Roll.
Yeah. Brighton Rock in 2010.
Yeah.
And then Burke and Hare in 2010 as well.
No idea. He's most famously as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he'll be most famously remembered for that trilogy. However, this is a pretty important trilogy, and he will get a lot of rep for this.
I think we should definitely have a career-defining role discussion when we do War of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, about Andy Serkis.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Marina, were the Lord of the Rings movies, were those in your rear view already at that? I mean, I was just thinking about how old I was when those movies came out in 2001.
Yeah, it was 12 or 13.
13.
Yeah.
So that has to have been a little bit before.
Yeah, no, they were definitely on the radar. People were talking about them.
Did you watch them?
I saw one of them, and then I never finished it, but I should.
Guys, I'm sorry. Marina's not going to be able to make it on the show anymore.
Honestly, this is my new favorite, though. Like, I was so well connected to this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just, like, the relationships or what it was. I mean, everything. I think everything makes up a movie. You can't just be in love with one. Or you can, but the way, like, I was so into it, I literally, like, wanted it to keep going.
Yeah. You will love Dawn.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait.
See, that's what's so cool about bringing you onto the show is, like, we watched Transformers last week, and it's kind of a movie that you gotta give it a little credit, right? Because it's 10 years old, and Michael Bay and blah blah blah. But this is why I love doing this show, is because people don't realize that Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a phenomenal movie for its acting, its writing, its screenplay, its direction. Like, there's all these things that people don't give credit to action movies for. But this movie is a brilliant film.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, guys, we're going to move into the next section of the show, and this relates back to a little bit of the fist pump moment I was talking about, where Caesar asserts his dominance. You see his rise to prominence, and this got us into a conversation about some of our favorite 3 zeros to heroes. Yes. So, guys, a conversation about characters that kind of start down in the dumps, they start from nothing, and they become something by the end of the film. And Andrew and I wanted to share 3 of our favorites, where you see the journey of the character through the film.
Emperor Kuzco from the Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, I like him.
There's that song, Zero to Hero, just like that.
Did you just come up with us right now, or had you been waiting to spring that one on me?
I don't know. I actually just thought of it now. Yeah, I do have a few. Do you want to hop in first?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in first with Will Ferrell and the other guys. He starts out as a mild-mannered cop, so I became an accountant for the New York Police Department. Literally the most boring job possible.
Ever.
He is amazing in this movie. So Will Ferrell, I've said this on the show before, one of my favorite actors of all time. Huge fan. So much so that when I made my list of the 10 people in the world I wanted to interview the most in my career, he was one of the 10, and he's the only one that I've gotten of my 10. And this, I think, is the last great Will Ferrell movie. I think 2010 is when this came out, and I don't think he's made a great film since.
Yeah, like a great Will Ferrell film. I don't think he's made one since either. I really like Everything Must Go.
Yeah,
I think
me
that's
too.
2012.
Yeah, a little different, though.
But it's not a Will Ferrell movie. I completely agree. So I think
his rise in this movie is great, though. Just in case you haven't seen it, guys, he starts out as a mild-mannered cop. He used to be a pimp named Gator, and Gator don't play that shit. Gator don't play that shit. And he comes out of his shell at the end because he has to solve the crime, and Mark Wahlberg brings him out of his shell, and he's just becomes the best. And this movie's just the best. It honestly, it seems real stupid when you watch it the first time.
I didn't like it the first time.
It gets funnier every time, and
I love it.
One of my favorite comedies of all time.
And Mark and him are doing Daddy's Home too. They just
with the phenomenal casting choices of Mel Gibson and John Lithgow as their dads.
Can't wait.
Can't wait for that.
So I have an honorable mention for Forrest Gump because he's just like the greatest ever. Zero turn to hero. But I did want to say Beatrix Kiddo.
Yeah.
Even though she is a trained assassin, like one of the greatest in the world, she couldn't walk at the beginning of the film.
She has to go get trained.
She has to go get trained. She has to remember how to train. She has to remember how to walk. And she's just such a badass.
She's great. I was blown away at how much more I liked that movie watching it on this show than I had a long time ago.
That's true. Yeah, and she comes from nothing. Everything's gone in her whole life. So,
number 2 on my list is going to be Henry Hill in Goodfellas. You start with him as a kid.
Oh yeah.
You start with Ray Liotta as a child, and he's working at the cab stand, and he's running around, and he's helping out. And as he gets older, he gets more responsibility, and he gets popped. He goes to he goes on trial, and they all are like, "Oh, you popped your cherry."
Oh right.
And then he becomes an adult, and he's a good earner, and he has like a couple really good prove it moments. We were talking about this, the prove it moment for a lot of these characters when they have their like
they definitely have their moments.
Their defining moment where you're like, oh yeah, that guy takes care of business.
So I think Forrest Gump's is when he pulls everyone out and he wins the Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
and the Purple Heart.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think for Henry Hill, the prove it moment is probably either the long tracking shot when he goes into the restaurant and you're like, okay, he's on top of the world. But I think probably actually the one is when Karen calls him crying because the guy they saw at the tennis club or whatever had like put his hands on her, and he shows up and she's like slumped down in the car and she like points over and he's walking towards the guy and the guy doesn't know that he's like a mobster, and he looks over and he's like, oh, what is this? And he just takes the gun out, just starts beating the shit out of his face. You remember that?
Yeah.
And he just walks away and he hands the gun to Karen and it's covered in blood. That's like the prove it moment for Henry Hill.
Yeah. I think so Beatrix Kiddo, hers I think comes actually at the end of the movie because you already know she's a badass. But one of my favorite parts is when Lucy Liu goes, "Silly little white girl thinks she can play with samurai swords."
Oh yeah.
And then after Beatrix lands the first blow on her when they're out fighting in the snow, she goes, "For doubting you earlier, I apologize." And it's just a sweet moment of that's what I love about like samurai movies and all that is they always honor who they're fighting.
Right.
You know, and like that moment of her giving her credit right before she dies is super cool.
Yeah, respect
she doesn't
for
get
your
it. Yeah. So my next one is William Wallace because he's one of the greatest. He came from nothing. Both of his dad and his brother got killed by the English. His wife got killed by the English. He comes from
his
nothing.
uncle is Brian Cox.
His uncle is Brian Cox. And yeah, I think his prove it moment is definitely when he comes back into the town after Mirren got her throat slit, and he looks like he's going to surrender.
Right.
And he just kills everybody.
Everyone.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
and that's when
one.
everyone's McCulloch.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
I've been saying it for 20 years.
Yeah, it's great. That movie's great.
It's great.
I think it's aged a little bit, but it's great.
It has aged a little bit, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a little long.
And then my third one's a movie I've talked about on here a lot of times, and this is going to be Catch Me If You Can. Because he's got one of the best... I do love Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
But he's got one of the best, like, as you watch him learn and get better and do more and become more clever and accomplish more, his story is just better and better and better. And he has to actually study and pass the bar, you know, because that's like when I
love that. How did you pass the bar?
I studied.
Yeah, it's such a great line.
It's great. That movie's really great. I think that movie is highly underrated, and I've said it a lot of times.
For sure. And I also think if you want to do it, Tom Hanks can also be the hero, and his proving point is when he lies to Leo and gets him to come outside.
Yeah, right.
That is so great.
Yeah, totally.
My very last one, if you guys know me or know the show at all, it's Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of Felix Legions, servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and he will have his vengeance in this life or the next.
Yep.
That is his moment, and that is one of the greatest ever on film.
It's a huge one.
Yep.
Yeah. It's weird, too, because he doesn't come from nothing because he's the general, but then he gets knocked down to nothing.
The general who became a slave, the slave who defied an emperor, and the gladiator who, whatever it is. Yeah. Do you have any? You have one more, right?
No, that was my three.
That was your three? Okay, cool.
Will Ferrell,
do you have anyone that pops in your head, Marina? Anyone that you loved growing up? It's okay if you don't. We sprung this on you last minute.
Honestly, Will Ferrell.
Yeah. Will Ferrell?
Because you know how big Elf was?
Yeah.
That came at the right time in my generation where,
Right.
I mean, I think, I know adults that watch it. I'm sure you guys have seen it.
Oh, of course.
I
Love
watch
Elf.
it maybe 10 times each, holiday season.
So you mean like as an actor, Will Ferrell is truly a zero to hero?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen it, by the way, you showed this to me. His commencement speech that he gave at USC this year
Yes.
It's amazing.
was so good.
Yep.
It was so good.
It was very good.
I was too busy throwing those darts to worry about what people were
And
thinking about me.
he always comes, he's always, in comedies. So to hear him give a speech,
Right.
about empowering and,
Yeah.
moving forward, this is the next step of
Yeah.
your life was, because you know how sometimes you get so caught up in thinking they're always like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I hate that because they're not. They're
They're
actual
people.
real people, and they do have emotional things to say, and so I thought that was interesting. Yeah,
He's worked with DirecTV Audience Network, who I work for often, a lot of times. He's come in and done commercials with us and things like that. So that's when I got to interview him, was for a charity thing last year. And his sense of humor, he's a very humble guy.
Yeah.
He came in and he's a giant sports fan, so he like nerds out around all of the producers about the sports knowledge and the people they know. And like he was gonna meet some really famous athlete. I can't remember who it was. And my producer was telling me that he came in and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna meet such and such. Should I change my shirt?" And
do I look good? I wish I wasn't wearing this fucking shirt.
Yeah, he's like, "What do I say to him? What should I say?" And he's
That's
like,
awesome.
like
Everyone's got their idols, man.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
All right, so moving on to production development, guys. This movie was written by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, and it was originally derived from Pierre Boulez's novel, Planet of the Apes. Jaffa and Silver are a couple. They're married. They've been, where is all this stuff that I wrote down about them?
Oh, right here. Yeah, they're American screenwriters. They're also producers on this film.
Yeah.
They're involved in some pretty big stuff now, actually. They're attached to write the script for Avatar 3.
Yeah, did you see the reason? Did you see the post in our fan page today? Someone was talking about why Avatar 2 is taking so long, and it's because James Cameron is trying to make practical 3D, so you don't have to wear glasses.
Glassless 3D, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And knowing James Cameron,
Make it happen.
he can probably do it. Yeah, so Hoffa and Silver, they were nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Writing for this film. They were co-writers and producers for Dawn as well, and for War of the Planet of the Apes. I think they're actually just producing that one.
And they're also working on the script for Mulan, live-action Mulan.
Yes, yeah, and they also wrote the screen story for Jurassic World and In the Heart of the Sea. Silver... she's the sister of Michael B. Silver, the actor, and granddaughter of the screenwriting legend Sidney Bachman. And in 2015, she was named one of the most influential women in Hollywood, which is cool because she's totally kicking ass right now. What is this? I didn't pull this.
Which one, Rupert Wyatt or Stephen Bully?
Oh, yeah. The first script that they ever penned was in 2006, completely unrelated, about a Genesis project about a killer or a chimpanzee that was genetically altered, engineered, that went crazy.
Yeah.
And that ended up kind of just being tied to this and it evolved into Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
They basically wrote an ape movie.
Yeah.
And then they said, let's make your ape movie into a reboot of Planet of the Apes.
Oh, so that's why you said ape movie. Genius. And then Pierre Boulez is actually really cool. There's some cool stuff about him. He was in basically what is the French Secret Service during World War II.
Oh, crazy.
In Singapore, and he was captured and tortured in 2 years in a labor camp. Okay, so this is the dude that wrote the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, in these books. So he used these experiences to write the book the Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Yeah.
About the notorious Death Railway, which later became an international bestseller and a movie that won 7 Oscars.
Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, Bridge on the River Kwai. And then and then the other movie or the book he wrote was Planet of the Apes.
Right.
And did you see they made what, like 8 movies now?
Yeah, I guess that would be. Yeah, it's like 8 movies. 7 maybe. So those are the writers.
Those are the writers, yes, sir.
It's directed by Rupert Wyatt, who is honestly kind of a nobody.
A nobody, and also it's crazy that he didn't direct Dawn because he did such a great job
with Rise. Yeah. I think he probably wasn't as suited for action, and they wanted to make it a bigger action film. So what ended up happening is Rupert Wyatt's English. He had worked in documentaries a little bit. He's a producer, writer, director. His first film called The Escapist was from 2008. Critically acclaimed.
I've seen the cover, I think.
Yeah, it's like a critically acclaimed indie. It has a pretty big cast of sweet
2008?
people. Yeah, Brian Cox is in it.
I was working at Blockbuster.
And then he did this in 2011. This was his second film. This film was very successful, made a lot of money, and followed up this with The Gambler, the Wahlberg film, in 2014.
Which is actually, I've heard, is okay.
It's okay. Yeah. I saw it with my family one Christmas. I like that movie. It's a remake, The Gambler, and it's a remake that It was trying to be, I think, like 2 different kinds of movies at the same time. It feels very different than Rise, and I'd recommend watching it. But I didn't think it was incredible or anything like that. But that was 2014, and he hasn't done another movie since. So he directed the pilot for Turn on AMC, and it's pretty much Rupert Wyatt. So
yeah, and then the only other people that we haven't talked about yet are the 2 producers. Well, there were 4 producers. Rick and Amanda were producers as well, the writers, as we said. But there were Peter Chernin and Dylan Clark. Tell me about them.
Yeah, Pete Chernin and Dylan Clark, both guys who really were mostly coming onto the scene with this film. Both of them worked on other films with the similar people. So Clark is attached to The Batman, which is going to be directed by Matt Reeves, which is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Right.
They've both produced the full trilogy of this series. Peter Chernin and Dylan Clark both also worked on Oblivion, and then The Heat and The Heat 2, the comedies. So they're not massive, they're not huge. They've done basically this trilogy and a few other pretty big movies.
Feels like they're right here. They could either go go over the edge to a great success, or they could fall off.
I think they'll both be quite successful because I think War is going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty successful trilogy. This is the kind of trilogy that gets you a lot of mileage because the quality's so high.
For sure. All right, so critical and box office. This movie was very successful. It was produced by Fox. It cost $93 million to make. It was released in August of 2011. I just want to say real quick that Grosse Point Blank has been talked about more in the last week between you and me and people online.
Yeah.
Ever. And I think it's the 20-year anniversary this year. I think it came out in April of 97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
I don't know why I'm talking about that right now.
We're
but
definitely going to do it on the show.
Yeah. So this movie opened August 5th, 2011. It grossed $176 million domestically, almost doubling its original budget, an additional $305 million worldwide for a grand total of $481 million, and it made $54 million its opening weekend.
Quite a surprise, honestly. When this was being advertised, I would not have predicted this was going to make almost $500 million in 2011. $500 million in 2011 worldwide is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and like the type of movies that were making that money in 2011 were Oscar bait or superhero movies.
The
right?
spike. Yeah, I mean, Oscar bait, not those kind of totals, because usually Oscar bait,
yeah, it's tough, because the Oscar bait, it's like the popular Oscar bait, not the ones that actually win.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the kind of movies that were making $500 million back then, you had a major spike happening with the big franchise movies.
Fast movies.
The Fast movies started to do really well. Jurassic World, the Star Wars relaunches, the later Harry Potters did really well. So, yeah, 481 was a big total. That definitely turned a lot of heads.
Yeah, this franchise is so... interesting. Did we talk about the AMA question? Did we skip past that?
It's a little later.
Okay, all right, my fault. All right, so critically, this movie got a 7.6 on IMDb, which feels appropriate, almost maybe a little low.
Yeah,
I think it's low.
It's a little low, right? One thing that we found is 8.2 puts you in the top 250 movies of all time.
Yeah.
So that margin between like 7.5 and 8.2 is massive.
Right.
But I still think this movie could have an 8.
7.8 or an 8?
Or even just a solid 8.
Yeah, I think this movie's very good. I think I can see where the flaws are. I can see where people criticize this movie, so I think 7.8 for me is probably about where I would put it. But I think it's very good. I think 7.6 a little low.
Yeah, and it's got an 81% by all critics, 81% by top, and a 77% by audience, which makes sense because it is more of a drama-driven movie, whereas the other Planet of the Apes feel like more action-driven.
Yeah.
And of course, it was nominated for an Oscar in Best Visual Effects. Achievement in Best Visual Effects, excuse me.
Can always count on our action movies to get at least one Oscar now.
Right. All right, so favorite line?
Yeah, let's get into favorite line. So it's hard for no not to just be my favorite line.
No.
It's such a powerful line.
Definitely my favorite line.
Is it?
And it was
100%.
as many times as he said it.
Yeah.
It moved on. Like
Every
my favorite
time,
line
right?
was the first time he said it, and then the next time he said it.
That's definitely his prove it moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it might even be the reaction, the apes and the human reactions to it. Because even in the second one, when like Jason Clarke's like, no, he spoke, and then Caesar comes in and speaks, he gives like a speech. Yeah, it's like everyone's faces can't believe it.
And Will's like, what do you mean? He goes, he spoke.
Yeah,
he spoke. That's all he said. He spoke.
Your ape spoke. And I also love that when he says your ape spoke, it's just like, that's it. There's no it's just like, all right, next scene, let's move on. So yeah, since you kind of said it, that's definitely my favorite line.
Yeah, for sure. I think I kind of like I sort of like when Cox is talking at the beginning, when you're gonna see them like say goodbye, and he looks over and he's like, a couple of weeks, you'll miss him more than he'll miss you. Yeah, and you're kind of like that's not true. You don't know how smart this ape is, you evil
bastard.
Yeah.
I also love his line of. I'm sorry, sir, you can't do that. This ape is now under, whatever
he
jurisdiction.
Doesn't belong. He's not yours
He's
anymore.
not yours anymore. You can't do that. And then Cox's like, let him.
Yeah.
He's just kind of standing there in the back.
Yeah.
He's like trying to grab. He's like, let him do it.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck you, Cox.
Come in when you're ready. I'll be eating my lunch.
Take your time. Never heard of him. What's your favorite line, Marina?
The part where he's explaining. Like, I kind of felt like it all came to senses for Caesar when he's in the back seat, and he's like, I gotta be honest, like, your mother, was here, and, you were born here, and you were a test ape.
Yeah.
He's
and
like,
you just see, like, Caesar, like, looking out the window, like, he was so sheltered into this human life with the sweaters, the pants.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it almost looks like he just wants to bash his head off the back seat. He's like, this is...
And doesn't he say, like...
my life's a lie, almost, moment. And you're kind of like...
Yeah.
Doesn't he say, what about my dad? And then, or something like that, or he signs something, and then Franco just responds with, well, I'm your dad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
I love that. Those are those lines like in Superman 2.
Right.
It's like, of course you're my son.
Yeah, right.
Like, God.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that, and then, what else did I have in here? Yeah, he spoke was the other one. That was just like, your ape. It spoke. Like,
your ape spoke. So it's like there's no question it was easy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I did think that from the point of view of writing, and so one of the things that I think knocks this movie down a little bit is James Franco definitely lives in the space in the movie where he's supposed to sort of be a hero character, but he isn't. He is kind of like a little villainous. Mm-hmm. And at the end, when Franco goes all the way to the Redwoods, and he says to him, come back, I'll protect you. The way that whole scene broke down was just like very inauthentic to me. Like why would Franco even have the gall to say that? It's like, you know, you're not going to be able to protect him. You're out of your mind.
Oh, you mean at the very end?
Yeah, like why would you even say that? Like, and then he says, I am home, and he says, okay, then go home or whatever. It's like, Franco, what are you talking about? You're way too smart to even act like that.
To even know that this is even a possibility. Well, because did you read about how there was a different ending?
No.
So there's an alternate ending that was filmed, and about 2 weeks before the release, producers flew Serkis and Franco out to film that ending that you don't like, which makes sense. Because the original ending was there was supposed to be more action on the bridge, and something was supposed to happen to where basically Will got out to the woods and there were still police chasing them, and then they were going to shoot at Caesar, and Will was going to step in the line of fire.
Got it.
And then something was going to happen in that moment, and then it was going to end up with Koba picking up a shotgun and learning how to shoot it at the end of the first movie.
Oh.
So they cut out all that, and they put in this ending that you don't really like, and it doesn't feel appropriate.
Right.
And that's one thing that's really interesting about Mission Impossible leading females and this movie, is the leading men just kind of disappear at the end of the movies, and the leading women disappear at the end of Mission Impossible movies.
Huh.
You notice that in Mission Impossible films? They all just disappear.
They all disappear, yeah.
Yeah, and same with Jason Clarke at the end of Dawn, Franco at the end of this. Because with this, you're supposed to just assume he dies from the simian flu.
Right.
You know?
Franco, you're talking about.
Yeah, because he's just not back in the next movie. And everyone that's alive in the next movie are people that are immune.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that... Did that lead into our question?
Yeah, I think it leads into the next question. It's Jacob Leaf. The question, with the new Apes trilogy considered one of the best reboots ever made, making a huge comeback after the Tim Burton remake, what are some other franchises that would either benefit from a reboot or have benefited the most from a reboot? So,
Good question, Jacob.
Yeah, it's a great question.
It's a great question.
So my answer to that is that this is, I think, this is the franchise that has benefited the most from a reboot, or at least in terms of its perception of being very, very low perceived value. Whereas the Batman franchise still had, I think, a very high perceived value at the time they rebooted it. So even
because
though
what happened was they would still talk trash about Forever and Robin, but everyone still loved the first two.
Right.
Yeah.
This is just an underrated.
Yeah,
and that was actually another one that was on a list of sequels that surpassed the first. A lot of people thought that Batman Returns was better than Batman, which I think is crazy.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah,
the first
ludicrous.
Batman's awesome.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's, you know, The Dark Knight's the all-time, that is the single all-time greatest reboot ever in a trilogy. But also the value of Batman was still pretty high, so I don't think that it's like the most significant, I guess.
Yeah, you know what I want to see? I want to see a good Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
just
I know.
once.
They just can't seem to do it right.
They just can't do it. Even with Michael B. Clarke and Rooney Mara and Miles Teller.
Michael B. Jordan, you mean?
Or Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, you've got these amazing up-and-comers. They're all great actors, and you still can't make a good movie.
Yeah.
I want it to happen.
I didn't even see that movie because I have heard it is so unwatchably bad. It's actually hilarious that, like, Sony, because Sony did that, right? Yeah. So like the fact that the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield and that Fantastic Four movie are like, that's like what Sony did. That's our superhero universe, guys.
We did it.
And then like now they're like, okay, we'll give you a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, you can have it.
You can have it.
Just give us some money, please.
Yeah, right. Like they're like, I guess we can't all just do this.
I'll be honest, man. I think the Jurassic World shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
I totally feel that way. Do you have any reboots or any movies that you wish that you watched growing up you wish would come back? I almost wish the Hobbit movies didn't happen, but they're not bad. I just love Lord of the Rings so much.
They're fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. I was pretty content with all the movies growing up.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to hear about, you know, your opinion on this reboot, and this is my first time watching it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to watch. Like, I'm going to go home today and watch Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
it's so good.
And seeing what everyone had to say about it online, like, that was the best. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm so curious about War.
I would have said that the Casino Royale reboot of the Bond franchise was one of the best ever, except that they just tanked it so hard.
They just got worse and worse and worse.
I think we're a little more harsh on those movies than most are. I think like a lot of people think Quantum is whatever, and that Skyfall's great.
Yeah,
and
people like
bad.
Skyfall and Casino.
Yeah.
And Quantum's okay.
But I mean, Daniel Craig's a really good Bond.
I honestly think he might be my favorite Bond.
Yeah.
He's great.
We have a release date of July 14th for the War movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're going to do that in
for that
2 weeks on the show. I'm trying to think. Or no, we'll be doing it next week. Because
Is it next week or Baby Driver's first?
Oh, yeah. Baby Driver, then War. Excuse me. Yeah.
That was our pitch.
Yeah. Yep. There's our pitch.
Baby Driver. Who's excited?
That's my first time doing this show. I think that's it for reboots and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Jacob, thanks for the question, man.
Yeah,
Always
thank you.
good to hear.
There's a
what
lot
you guys have
of
to say.
really excellent questions online. I hope that we addressed. I think we addressed a good amount of them throughout the episode without specifically addressing them.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys can go. You can find those questions and submit others for future episodes on the Facebook fan page, which is growing. And also, guys, just as a quick shout out, because I know you're on there, Eddie from Bigger Boat Movies. I'm going to be doing a quick interview on his channel on Anchor, Anchor.fm, which is like podcast meets Twitter. It's an awesome app I'm on as well. Tomorrow that'll air. So go check that out. Check out his station. Just download the app.
Yep.
So the last thing we're going to talk about here are which of the 3 action movie categories this movie fits into: totally legitimate, totally ridiculous, or ridiculously legitimate. Totally ridiculous movies are like Con Air and Face Off and
Demolition Man.
Yeah. They're very silly. They're laughable the whole way through, even though they're a lot of fun. Totally legitimate movies are going to be like Lone Survivor and Terminator 2. Fugitive. Yeah, movies that really hold together. They don't make you laugh unintentionally.
They stand the test of time.
Yeah, and then ridiculously legitimate is sort of the middle category, where there are definitely some moments where you chuckle. You know, they definitely they take some liberties, and sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not, but they're held together by at least one really, really strong core element, whether it's a performance or a story,
General Hummel,
a character arc or something. And for me, this movie is totally legitimate. It doesn't really try to be anything else, and it does a great job at it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it executes everything that it wants to. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Marina?
I agree.
Totally legit?
I do.
Yeah, I don't think it's really much of a discussion.
Yeah.
I know yesterday or last week we were
Yeah.
battling kind of between the totally ridiculous and everyone was chiming in totally ridiculous, totally ridiculous.
Oh,
and at
really?
first
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, wait, what do they think we're saying that's totally ridiculous? But they were talking about I'm like, no,
Like, no, the show's
we're
falling
making sense.
apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I literally thought it was like between my eyes. I'm like, no, go back.
Well, you kept it together. You kept your cool on the couch pretty well.
Yeah,
I had
no,
no idea you were panicking.
I was like, I literally in my heart I'm like, no, please stay with us, like the views.
And you and I ended up going totally. You were totally ridiculous from the beginning. I was ridiculously legitimate and got swayed by a fan.
Yeah, right.
And you stuck in the middle category, right? Yeah.
did.
And then this week, I think, like we said, it's unanimously totally legit.
Totally legit. So, guys, there's only one thing left on the show, and that's going to be called The Pitch. And we actually...
That was really in sync. That was
yeah.
the best I think you guys have done.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll take
And then, Andrew already, pitched the movie.
You're fired.
I need my pen.
We're doing Baby Driver, Edgar
Yes.
Wright's movie. Very excited for this movie. Really looking forward to this one.
I've literally heard from every single person that watched this that
Yeah.
it is fucking amazing. They all use that adjective to describe it.
I stood in line next to Edgar Wright for 10 minutes waiting for a whiskey at the Big Sick premiere about 2 weeks ago. And I knew it was him because I just recognized his picture. He was on the tip sheet, but he didn't do interviews. And he loves Point Break because of Hot Fuzz. And I know this about him. I've never met him, never gotten to interview him. The whole time I was like trying to think, I was like, is there some way that I can not be the annoying guy at the premiere who knows who you are but didn't interview you and
Right.
bring up Point Break without just like fanboying? And in the end I was just like, don't do it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Just don't do it. Wait for another opportunity. I'll talk to you about Point Break. I wanted to be like, Point Break's also
Point Break's my favorite movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we best friends?
Yeah. So I stayed away from it. I just quietly waited and watched.
We get a message from Edgar Wright. That story's not true. He harassed me for hours.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, as it is, officially now Wednesday, even though we recorded this the previous week.
Yeah.
Find us online.
Yeah. You can find me at Andrew Ghai on Instagram and Twitter. You can find our podcast at AMA Podcast on Twitter. And please join our Facebook fan page on Facebook, which is called Action Movie Anatomy Fan Page. We interact a lot on there.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter or Instagram. And, of course, our Genesis Lab Tech, Marina Verano. Thank you.
Of course.
Womaning the couch.
Yeah.
Marina_Verano on Twitter and Instagram. And, yeah, as Andrew said, definitely go on the podcast AMA fan page. I definitely interact with all you guys on there. So
We're going to
see you
be, as we do this show, definitely trying to give Marina movies to watch that are like the essential viewing. There's a lot of movies, guys, but if you think there's a movie that Marina has to see for the show, like she needs to tweet at her and let her know. Because that's, I think, we're going to be all working collectively on what the most important movies are.
Or even an episode that you think completely embodies Ben and I and this show like perfectly in an episode. We were trying to give her an idea of like some to watch yesterday, and a couple popped up. But if you guys have any, again, let us know. Twitter or on Facebook.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.